I went to see the Odyssey last night with my mom, and what is it? Yes, Binna? I want to come out. We have a cat interruption. Binna is here. Want to sit? Okay. She has settled. Hi, I'm Adelaide. Writer, YouTuber, Twitch streamer, and hopefully one day author. I have a bachelor's in creative writing. I love to talk about stories, and today I want to talk about the Odyssey. Yesterday I went to see the Odyssey with my mom. I know, a little late to the party, but I had a lot of thoughts on it and a lot of feelings, and it wasn't what I expected in like the actual best way possible. So when the Odyssey originally came out, a lot of the discourse online I saw was that the Odyssey was in fact fantastic, that it was a brilliant film, another Christopher Nolan masterpiece, all that stuff. And I knew like when we were getting information about it as it was like being developed that it was going to be this really big film. I saw photos from set of like the really big puppet. I heard about all the IMAX cameras. I heard every actor being like, well, it's a Christopher Nolan film. So of course I said yes, and I was so excited to be asked, and you know, all the things, right? So I understood that it was going to be like a really big film. And then it came out and it was a really big film. But I think what happened after that was what always happens whenever something gets that big, which is the internet praises a thing long enough that eventually people start to go, actually that thing is bad. And that's sort of what happened. I started seeing discourse of people saying that the way Christopher Nolan portrayed the women characters in the Odyssey was reductive and like kind of made them smaller than they were in the original text. That Christopher Nolan portrays women in a way where he's like putting them on this pedestal, and like women are this like beautiful object, but you're still saying they're an object and not a person. You're still putting them in like these specific boxes. And honestly, I was like, that would make sense about the Odyssey, since I kind of also felt that way about Oppenheimer. Now, that being said, I didn't really like Oppenheimer personally. Like when I saw it, I literally felt every single hour. I was like, oh, how long has it been? An hour? Yep, it feels like that. How long has it been? 2 hours. Yes, it feels like 2 hours. How long has it been? 3 hours. Yes, that feels like 3 hours. Whereas the Odyssey, I did not feel that way. I actually really liked the Odyssey. I thought it was a fantastic film. And I actually didn't think that the women characters were portrayed that badly. And like I said, I felt that way about Oppenheimer, but I did not feel that way about the Odyssey. I thought that it was really great. And so I took some notes. Of course I did. Same journal. We're getting closer to getting done. We're like, only got a little bit left. But I took some notes, and I'm going to talk to you today about it. So first, a little bit of information as well of my own personal understanding of the Odyssey. I am someone who took a lot of like advanced English classes in high school. I had like learning disabilities and stuff growing up, so I was not in any advanced classes before that. But once I got into high school, I took a lot of advanced English classes because I'm a literature person. I like books. So I have read my fair share of classic lit, and yet, for whatever reason, I have this weird feeling that I have read the Odyssey for school. Like if you were to ask me, have you read the Odyssey? I'd be like, yeah, I think so. But then when I go back and like go, okay, well, was it in 10th grade? Was it in freshman year? Was it in junior year? Was it in senior year? It's like, no. All the things I remember reading, none of them were the Odyssey. And I don't think I read it in middle school. So I'm like, when did I read the Odyssey? Like, I genuinely don't remember. My best guess is it was freshman year. A lot of what I read in freshman year is kind of a blur in my head. My best guess is that we read an excerpt of the Odyssey at some point in time. But I feel very familiar with the text. So I think I have more of an understanding than just pop culture. But at the same time, it's all kind of like blah, blah, blah in my head. But I'm remembering things from it, and I don't think I'd seen any films. So I don't know how I read the Odyssey, but I think I did at some point in school. So that's a mystery for another time, I guess. I thought it did a really good job as an adaptation. I went with my mom, who is a big literature person and who has read the Odyssey, and she and I both talked about there were several things that they'd cut. Apparently there's like a whole other big battle they have to fight after big fight against the suitors at the end of the film, and I didn't remember that, but apparently that was the thing, and that was not in the film. But she was like, I like it though. She's like, I like the way it was written. And there were certain things that like were slightly different. Like the way Penelope knows it's Odysseus is slightly different. Apparently in the text, she said that it was because they had this very ornate and specifically carved bed in their bedroom. And it's like carved out of a tree. And Odysseus knows that. And none of the other stewards had ever set foot in her room. So none of them should know that. But I think what they used instead, it was, I won't spoil it. Okay, so let's talk about my feelings on it, okay? So let's see, I have notes. A lot of people had feelings on Calypso and Athena on the portrayals of these two characters. I agree a little bit, but not fully. I think a lot of the issue with these two characters actually laid in their costuming more so than what they were actively doing in the story. Now again, I have not read the Odyssey recently, so I could be wrong. And I have not read the interpretation of the Odyssey that this film was based off of. There's a newer, if you don't know, there's a newer interpretation of the Odyssey. And apparently the Odyssey was originally, in the past, has been interpreted by a lot of men, old-timey men, who, you know, by the nature of being old-timey men, were rather sexist. And so her interpretation is a lot less sexist and kind of reveals a new perspective on the text. A lot of people had issue with the way Calypso was presented, and they were like, she looks like a model, she looks like this, she looks like that. And I don't know if people are gonna like my thoughts on this, but I actually don't think what Calypso was wearing was actually that bad. I think she's like straight on an island, and she's like literally like, she's turned a sail from a ship into an outfit. It's giving The Little Mermaid makes a sail dress for herself. And she does wear a shorter outfit when she's fishing, but when she's not fishing, it's pretty normal. And her and Odysseus are kind of dressed similar. Is her outfit a little bit shorter than his? Yes, it is. But my literal only change I would make is that when she's fishing, she has this like fishnet, like actual fishnet kind of like piece on top. And I think, in my head at least, I think that's supposed to represent like, that's her fishing line that she's kind of like draped over like across, like over her head. And I wish it would be like an actual bunched up fishing line that she just has like looped and like draped around and is like wearing it bunched up. That would make more sense to me. Especially if it was like, I think it'd be really cool if it was like mix matched fishing fabric, fishing lines that she's like knotted and sewn together and all like patched. Kind of cool, just that. It's this thing sometimes where people will watch something and they're like, the person making this is sexualizing this character. And it's like, maybe you are sexualizing this character, not the person making it. Maybe the problem is the way you're looking at her versus her. Like, the actress who played Calypso was a great actress, and she did a fantastic job. I think it's just because she's pretty. And you're like, they're sexualizing Calypso. And it's like, dude, she's a nymph. Of course she's beautiful. She's inhumanly beautiful. And I think she just kind of looks like that and is wearing a sail dress. And y'all are like, and it's like, it's just kind of short. It's a little short. Her fishing dress is short. I will give you that. But also, if it were me and I was fishing and I had a long dress or a shorter dress, I would also wear the shorter dress if I was standing in the middle of the water, like slinging fishing net everywhere. Because I don't want to get my whole dress wet. So I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Moving on. Athena's costuming. I had thoughts on that. I actually really like Athena. I think Zendaya does a fantastic job of portraying her. I have most of my thoughts honestly centered around Athena. My literal only issue with her is that I kind of wish she had costume changes. I wish we got to see Athena at the very least with like some sort of armor chest plate on. I want her in a Athena-centric, like carved with owls, majestic chest plate. And I feel like we should be allowed to have her in something like that. It doesn't feel out of the ordinary when we have what's-his-face in this suit of armor. My mom was like, he's like a king. And I was like, yeah, and she's a goddess. So there's like a spinal cord on the back of his helmet. Athena can have an owl engraved chest plate and a cool helmet and a spear. Like at least 1 or 2 times, like give her some cool armor. And this is something my mom brought up. She mentioned how she's like, I thought in the Odyssey, Athena was in disguise talking to Odysseus a lot more. I think that Athena should have different outfits that make her almost blend into the scenes more. So like maybe there's a few times what they'll do is they'll have like Odysseus in frame down here, and then they'll like tilt the perspective, and then you see that Athena has been sitting beside him, kind of just looking at him. And I think that when he has a scene like that where he's on the boat and he's like looking at this like Athena pen, I feel like she should be wearing the same kind of armor as him and his men are wearing. I think that at some point she should be wearing her outfit. I think that maybe more like modest beggar's clothes, or look like she's from a temple when they're in a temple. Like, I think it'd be really cool to put her in slightly different outfits, and then only at the very end when they show her in this like position of distress, which is, I'm not gonna clarify because I'm trying not to spoil things, because I think you should go see the film. There's this moment where you kind of see him reflecting on this thing, and metaphorically, actually no, he talks about the Battle of Troy, and there's a scene you see multiple times of them cutting the statue of Athena's head off. They actually show Zendaya's character like in distress, like she's about to be beheaded. The visual element of that, they show actual Athena, and I think they do kind of she has this like head covering that she's wearing the whole time, and then they take that off for that scene. I think we shouldn't have seen her in that white outfit until that moment. I think that she could have had the chest plate on top. I think she could have had other different elements. But I really think that, to me, when watching this film, I feel like Athena was so... Yes, Athena the goddess. Yes, we are in a mythological Homer Odyssey situation. Yes, 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 of course. But at the same time, I felt like the way the Odyssey approached the gods as a concept felt a little bit more grounded, very grounded in our world, in the sense of how maybe we feel today about gods and like Christian God and all the different religions and stuff that are more modern, in the sense that like they are in some ways these like ethereal things where like, oh well, the gods, but like you're not gonna walk up and Jesus is right in front of you and he's like, sup dude. You know, the way sometimes it feels like that in mythology. It feels like the gods are just like walking down the street half the time, or they could just pop up anywhere, and we don't really feel like that. And so aside from Athena, all of the gods, it's like, oh well, you've angered Zeus, or oh, you've angered Poseidon, but we don't ever actually see any of the gods except for Athena. And when we see Athena, to me, it felt kind of like a visual cue for Odysseus's intuition. Every single time Athena appears, he is starting to come to some sort of realization. He is starting to understand something. He realizes something's not right. He's like, it's a representative of like a knowing, of knowing something. He goes, huh. And then when that knowing, suddenly we're looking at Athena. Suddenly she's in frame when he's like, as he does that turn, the camera also turns, and then we see Athena beside him. And so to me, I think it makes sense then that he's having a realization about on the ship with his men, and she is there dressed as one of his men, maybe even make her dirty like she's one of the men, you know? And they make this idea of like, Zeus's law, and the idea that like Zeus's law being that like the gods walk among men. One person could be a god in disguise, and so you treat everyone with hospitality and how you would wish to be treated, right? And so in that same sense, anyone could be a god. Why not disguise her in that way, where it's obviously Zendaya. Like, Zendaya is beautiful, a stunning human being. Like, of course, she stands out among all these sweaty men, but still, she is dressed in the armor. She has the mud on her face, or the grime. She looks a little grimy as well, and she's sitting there beside him, kind of looking at him. But I don't know. I think that would be really, really cool. I understand maybe why they didn't. I think how stark her outfit does stand out in these like very dirty settings. The fact of how clean she is shows that she is not in the setting in the same way that Odysseus is. But I still think it'd be really cool if they'd done that. That is my like big Athena rant. Anyway, so other thing that I think is kind of interesting is Anne Hathaway's acting was fantastic. Her performance was absolutely phenomenal. And one of the things that I noticed in retrospect was that she did this thing, and I think it was Anne Hathaway doing it herself, but I also kind of wonder if it was a thing with the lighting, where they like changed the lighting. She would do this thing when her character Penelope, when she's like talking to her son Telemachus, or when she is talking to different people about her husband being gone for so many years, which is of course a big part of her character and her situation, is that this is the thing that they are always talking about. In those moments, she looks like she ages like 10 years. Anne Hathaway has aged beautifully and is barely a wrinkle on her, if at all, right? And so she'll be like this very smooth-faced Anne Hathaway just like, regal. And then she's like, years. And it's like every single little line like on her face just like appears. And then she goes back to like, oh, no, smooth face Anne Hathaway. I thought it was phenomenal. I don't know how you do that with your face, but I don't know if it was lighting change, because it does feel like it's like almost like a cut frame where she's from here to here, and then it's like this frame, and then when it's this frame, that's when she's like all wrinkly. But I just thought that was really cool that she was able to do that, and I felt like it was like you suddenly would see her age 10 years before your eyes, and then the mask would slip back, and she'd be like beautiful, pristine queen. And I thought that was very interesting. I thought that was really cool. Athena is such a big part of this film. She was a big part of the original Odyssey. I was thinking about her a lot in this whole story, because Penelope gives Odysseus this Athena figure. I think it's like a pin, like on your shirt pin, specifically to wear so that he will be recognizable. It's like this odd thing for him to have on his person. And she's like, carry this on your journey so that if anyone gives me news of you, I will know that they've actually met you if they mention your pen. He's like, cool. I think in some ways to Odysseus on his journey represents his wife. You don't actually see him wearing it, but you see him holding it a lot. He's always holding it and looking at it and rubbing it, looking at Athena on this pen. Now, in this whole thing, by the end of the film, so we are getting into spoilers here, there is a sort of thing of how, because during the Trojan War, they created the Trojan horse, right? That they were breaking Zeus's law in doing that. They were breaking this kindness of hospitality because they offered a gift that was really a trap, right? They set this trap, and that trap broke Zeus's law and was disrespectful to not only Troy, but also specifically Athena. We see this imagery of Athena getting her head chopped off, of the mirroring how they chopped off Athena's statue's head. Now, I felt kind of weird about this because I was like, is Troy Athena's city? Don't get me wrong, but I thought that was Athens. Like, it's named after Athena. So I was like, why is it that Athena is shown like, oh, this is hurt Athena? And why is it that like Odysseus is like begging for Athena's forgiveness? And it's like, despite this, all of this, Athena has been his, like, the one championing him this whole time, like had his back. Athena was the one who had his back this whole time. So why is it that he is having to realize that he hurt Athena, when it's like normally the gods do have no problem showing their wrath? Part of me on one level with this is like kind of confused why they used Athena as the deity they chopped the head off the statue of, when you could have just as easily used a different deity. I thought maybe the Trojans would have worshipped different deities than the Greeks, but I don't know, are the Trojans also Greek? I don't remember. I haven't read the Odyssey in a long time, so I'm a little whatever on it. I guess I'll look it up before I finish editing this video, but I was a little confused on the whole thing. And then the other thing where I was like, I don't know, was there's this idea that part of the reason that it took him so long to get home was that on a subconscious level, Odysseus did not want to get home, because part of him didn't feel like he deserved to have good things, to see his wife again after everything he had done, that Odysseus did not want to have to face her after doing all of these bad things, after becoming what he felt to be a bad person. But the other thing that I was thinking was, in some ways, if they kind of tie like the Trojan War to like this slight to Athena, or that like the Trojan horse as a slight to Athena. Part of me wonders if like the use of Athena, it's almost like his wife gave him the Athena pendant. His wife, on some level, clearly sees Athena as some sort of special thing, as this special deity. And so it's like he did not want to have to admit to his wife how he had slighted Athena. Is kind of the visual, one of the things that I kind of wonder about the Odyssey, or at least this particular version of the Odyssey, if that is a piece of it, because like that felt like a visual component to me, with the whole like, I don't know how to say, like the Athena pendant being this thing he's carrying the whole time, that she is the goddess that's always with him, and then the seeing of like how he's like almost can't face Penelope because of what they did in Troy, and then they show this like image of Zendaya almost being beheaded, like because they beheaded a statue. So I don't know. I was just thinking that might be kind of interesting. The other thing I was thinking of was the hero's journey, which like, duh, obviously the Odyssey is a classic hero's journey story, is like perhaps the hero's journey. But one of the things that I thought about with the hero's journey was the very end of it, and how in order to get home, and the final leg of getting home, he's gotten so far from home, so stranded in so many weird and random places, spent 7 years just with Calypso. And then the one thing that gets him home is he builds the shittiest raft you've ever seen in your entire life, lays on it on his back, no supplies, and the gods just carry him there. And it was that blind faith that actually got him the last leg of the trip. And I thought about that a lot because I remember, like, when I was in therapy, I remember talking with my therapist about feeling like I was of someone who was very, like, scattered with my interests. I have a lot of varying interests. Like, I've talked on here about knitting, but I also do a lot of arts and crafts. Like, let's see. I was making a banjo, a tiny pretend banjo for a tiny stuffed frog. I've been making a little seashell trinket box. There's another half to this. I crocheted these covers for my headphones. I showed you the knit stuff before. I can't think of anything else right off the top of my head, but I have a puppet head sitting over there that I've made. I've been knitting on puppet Muppet sweater. I make a lot of really weird and random stuff, and I have a lot of hobbies that feel very scattered and not at all connected. I remember talking to my therapist and being like, man, like, what does any of this have to do with any of it? Like, I feel like I'm just running from task to task. I get like really obsessed with one thing and then really obsessed with another thing and really obsessed with another thing. And none of these things have anything to do with each other, and they're always half finished and nothing. I feel like I'm going nowhere. Like I'm just kind of running in random directions. I'm not actually getting anywhere. And she's like, I think that you are though. She said, think of it as like a spiral, right? Like you feel like you're not making progress because you're going to all these different things. She's like, but what you're actually doing is you're starting up here, and yeah, you're going to all these different interests, but you're going and you keep going and going, and eventually you're going to narrow down on something, right? And I feel kind of like that sort of process of working on a task and feeling like working at something, chipping away at it, feeling like you're losing stuff in the process, feeling like you're making no progress whatsoever. Suddenly, that last leg is just handed to you. I think it's one of those things where it's like sometimes shitty things just happen. I want to clarify. Sometimes shitty things just happen to you and there is not a rhyme or a reason, right? That totally happens. That has also happened to me in life. But sometimes things take a very arduously long time to happen because they have to take that long because you're learning lessons in that process. And they're hard lessons and they're not fair. Odysseus loses all of his men in the process. All of these people die. But he learns the lesson he needed to learn in this process. I have no idea if you can hear that or not. He learns a lesson that he would have never been able to learn otherwise. And it's so simple to me that he just like lays down on like some logs, like some old planks that are barely held together. The gods straight up carry him where he needs to go. But at the same time, it's like he gets to do that because that he gets carried there very easily because he put in all this work way before that in ways that seem maybe innocuous to the final conclusion. And I feel like life is just like that sometimes. And I think it's kind of interesting because I feel like a lot of these more classical tales have that effect where it's like, sometimes life is just like that. I don't know, I just feel like a lot of these more classical tales really do have this sort of art reflecting life feeling where it's like sometimes it's just like that, dude. Sometimes life is weird. It's really weird. And I just really liked that. I thought that was really cool that it felt very reflective and applicable to life today. I think we all go through our Odyssey equivalents in our lives, and we probably do so multiple times in much smaller and bigger ways. And I just thought that was really cool to reflect on that, to reflect on such an old story that definitely, clearly still holds so much weight. The costuming, fantastic. The visuals, fantastic. I think this may be the first time we actually saw an adaptation of the Odyssey that looked, at least from the outside, looked very period accurate in terms of like the lighting and and how like dark it was at night and inside of buildings, the way the structures were built, the costuming, the everything of it really did look like way back in the day when the Odyssey happened, versus, as my mom said when we were talking about it after, a lot of times they have more of a Renaissance feel to them, like the way the Renaissance thought the Greeks were versus maybe how they really were. And so this felt a little bit more in line with what it was actually looked like back in the day. So I thought that was really cool. I'm really glad I watched it. I might want to read the Odyssey. I don't know. Maybe I'll read the Odyssey. Maybe I'll read that new adaptation that apparently is so good. But yeah, let me know what you thought about the Odyssey down below. Thank you for watching my channel. This was kind of an unexpected video to make. I promise I'm still working on my next long form video, but I will try to do some more videos, like more conversational videos like this in the meantime, because I think I want to be better about uploading more. But the problem is the kind of long form videos that I really am proud of, they take like a long ass time. So hopefully you will enjoy all the kinds of videos that go up on this channel. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a good day. Hope you're doing well, and